Griffin. I'm the president of City Center Realty Partners. We're the owners of Public Market. Several months ago, we were in front of many of you to talk about our plans for the existing food hall, the new retail, restaurants we want to bring to the project. Tonight, though, we want to talk to you about the park. Back in 2008, when the overall approvals were obtained for this project, the city envisioned a redo and expansion of the park. And so following up on that, we wanted to talk to you about some of our ideas for the expansion and renovation of the park, and we want to get your input. That's specifically the reason for the meeting tonight, is to hear what you would all like to see to be a part of this park. So I'm going to turn it over to our architects and let them explain to you what we have in mind.
Sure. Let's see. Is it on or no? It's on. Can you hear me, everyone? Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. I'm Ann Howerton, and I'm here with Erin Ashley, who's the architect, half of the team architect planner. I'm the landscape architect. We're both working on this. We are very excited to be here. We're actually East Bay residents. We're in and about this place all the time, and very excited to be working here for the first time. So what we've got in mind to kick this off is to just put up front the fact that this is a dialogue. This is a kickoff to a conversation. We're very interested that you've taken the time out of your lives to show up, and we want to hear from everybody. We've got a little website, we've got a Dropbox, we've got a little short card with some questions that might help us know a little bit about you or a little bit about your preferences and observations, maybe as a result of the presentation, maybe ideas you came with. At the end of this very short kind of slideshow where we're just talking about some things, and we're going to start staying a little high with some background, then we're going to sort of move into looking at photos of the park, talking about some observations about what makes good parks, and specifically about what Emeryville has told us they want for Christie Park, but we want to hear what you want as users, potential users and members of the community most of all. And so we're very excited that you've taken the time to be here. We'll kick it off right now. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to stay a little high, and we're going to talk about Shell Mound and a little bit about the adjacent property, and then we're going to move to the park. So for that, I'm going to introduce Erin Ashley. Erin, some of you may have seen him at some other meetings. He is an architect and wonderful planner, and he's involved in that, and he's going to tell you a little bit briefly, but we're not going to take too much time on that, and then we'll move on.
Thanks. As Mark said, we saw a number of you, I guess it was about 4 months ago now, and we talked a lot about the larger project, and I just wanted to kind of recap briefly to be on the same page. And effectively, the site today is bounded by Christie and by Shell Mound, and the new building at 64th and Christie is getting close to completion. And what we're doing in a separate dialogue is working through the process that was envisioned 5 or 6 years ago to realign Shell Mound and transform the surface parking lots into higher density, higher intensity uses, multifamily, new retail, new office, and as part of that, the enlargement of the park. And where I'm happy to answer questions after the meeting about the larger project, but we really just wanted to focus today on the park. For those of you that weren't here, just a couple of quick shots of what we envisioned for Shell Mound. We definitely picture a very walkable, family-oriented, pedestrian experience that is a great place to shop, a great place to eat, a great place to work, and a great place to live. And you know, as a corollary, I think our hopes for the park are this is the center of a community, and it's a place that the community wants to use. It's not the gigantic store you drive to from Walnut Creek, and it's very much a place that is for the residents of Emeryville and the East Bay. And I just live over the street in Oakland, so I feel like I'm here all the time. We kind of put some specifics to it. The park today is about 0.8 of an acre, and I know most people don't reckon in acres, but it's about the same size as the parking lot next to it. And so as part of the realization of the project is the goal is to almost double the size of the park and stretch it from where it is today all the way north to the building that's under construction. And if you're a resident of PPP, you know that basically now your entire front door is going to be a park. And I think that's a pretty powerful thing. And what it does for Christie as a street and a neighborhood street, I think it's really powerful. And what it does for the entire community. So the new park will be about 1.3 acres. And again, not a lot of people reckon in acres, but that's a pretty good sized city block. And if you go to New York, it's not much different from a New York City block.
So, will you do the slide from this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to tag team this a little bit. What this slide is showing you is some of your other parks in green, the ones that are called city parks in the park and rec plan, and there's Christie Park in red. So you can see it's kind of a middle-sized one. It's certainly not as big as the parks that are out on the waterfront in the bay shore, but it's a nice park, and it seems to be in an area that doesn't have parks right now. So it's a good opportunity, and we're glad it's expanding, and we're looking forward to figuring that out with you all. Next slide. So here's one that you know probably, Doyle Hollis. You'll notice that those are kind of the same shape. They are the same size, basically. And so as we get into thinking about what might happen, it's a good scale comparison that you could keep in mind, because it's something you already know. You know, it's a rectangular shape, bounded by streets, and it basically has the same acreage. Okay.
As you start to think about the park today and how you use it, and again, a lot of what tonight is about is us understanding how you really use the park. I mean, we spend a lot of time here at the marketplace, and we watch people use the park, but I don't think, since neither of us live in the park, we're looking to you for direction on how you actually use it. But if you think about the park today, it's kind of an urban park, but it's surrounded on two sides by parking lot. And it's got a kind of a series of office and shopping and residential buildings around it. As we look to the future and start to imagine how new buildings over time, as the marketplace development is realized, this becomes a really urban park, and that's a pretty powerful thing. You know, obviously the building that's under construction, the buildings that exist, that coffee shop right there, PPP, the office buildings, the gym, but what's now the parking lot and what's now the movie theater at some point will be residential buildings. And you know, this urban park, which is really significant in size. If you're, I'm an avid New York tourist, but you know, this is the size of Union Square, so it's a real urban park. We'll have about 2,000 people within a 5-minute walk of it in the not too distant future. I mean, there's already about 1,500 people in a 5-minute walk. So although it feels like it's at the front door to a lot of your homes, it's really the front door and the front yard for a lot of folks in Emeryville. Just a kind of a quick run through of the park today, just to remind ourselves of what's out there. It's predominantly hardscape paving, and a lot of that paving on the Christie Avenue and on the south side along the kind of the vacant lot kind of gets some use, and I think, you know, there are a few benches and things to do there, but it is a lot of pavement. One of the great things the park does is it makes it easy to cross. There's a lot of activity going from the marketplace to PPP, from PPP through to the theater. In purple, we've shown a couple of locations of benches. But another thing that we notice about the park is the berms, and they're kind of terrific at creating a sense of enclosure. They also divide the park in half, and we want to know from you, well, do you like it that way? Can you imagine it differently? You have a great perspective on this, and so that's one of the things we want to get out of this. We also know that there's some nice lawn area, and you know, that lawn area is divided by paths, and do you like that? Do you want a bigger lawn area that you can throw Frisbee on? So that's, a lot of today is understanding, you know, what would you really want to see here? And lastly, there's a a number of trees, and the bigger trees tend to be kind of between the park and the parking lot. That's nice. You don't have to look at the cars all the time. And there's some smaller trees amongst the hardscaping. As we think about how the sun moves and how the wind comes from, where does it make sense to have a lot of trees? And if you were part of our last presentation, you know that we know very well how hard it is to grow a good tree in Emeryville, especially in this part of Emeryville. And when we have decided as a team to make meaningful trees here, we're not going to scatter a lot of half-dead trees around. We want to find the right kinds of trees and put them in the right kinds of places. One of the defining characteristics of at least the gym site, and certainly the park, is it's a windy place and it's a loud place. And you certainly have if you don't live here all the time, you have a recognition of the highway that you don't readily see, but you can't ignore. And so we want to think about, what does it mean to have a place of solitude or respite, with these conditions. One of the great last points, just on analysis, Nick, if you want to hit, is, there are times where it's nice and sunny in the mornings, and there's times where it's socked in and it's cold. And there are great hot afternoons where it's great to find shade, and there are cold afternoons where you want to be in the sun. And what's interesting is you can see the length of the PPP shadow, and some of the lengths of the other shadows, but this is basically the shadows of the year put onto one drawing. And so what's great about the park today is so much of it's in the sun all the time. But actually a lot of it is in the shade, is in the sun in the morning and in the shade in the afternoon. And that's not something that's all that bad in a place that gets a little warm in the summer.
Okay.
Where's this thing?
I can't remember. I think we're going to work our way through the next slides. Okay, everybody with us? Okay, great. So now we're going to drill down on the site in a little more detail. We've had some first observations. So here's a nice aerial. You can see the complete context. I know you all know where you are. I don't think we need a pointer to point it out. We're going to move through some other little ways of analyzing, because as design professionals, one of the things we learn and we find are useful is beyond the site analysis that gets us understanding the microclimate, the existing vegetation, important hardscape, softscape criteria. We have to dig a little deeper, and we have to sort of try and now think about, and what activities do you want to do, and how do you use this park? And you're going to help us with understanding it better as part of this process.
Can you hold the mic up to your mouth?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, is that better? Okay. So first of all, we'll just drill through a few site photos. I know you know this, but we want you to know that we know it too. So here's the interesting berm. This is the inward-facing part of the park, and if you walk this way, you just cut through straight to Christie, and I call that the backside because it literally is not a scalable kind of berm. It's substantial, and as we said, we have maybe some curiosities about what it does or not or doesn't do for you. Next slide. Here's the one that we know. This was the one that, in a 10-minute period, I had 10 people crossing. Some of them had Pete's Coffee going this way, some were going this way, to the bus stop, back to the PPP. Well-used, well-traveled. Again, want to hear about it. As we expand, there is the opportunity to have, as he supposed, a larger lawn, if in fact that's something that you desire. And maybe this works just great. We want to hear on that point. This is the part that you have to imagine the expansion. We have to I had to literally hold my camera up as high as I could to take this photo. But it is truly going to become the edge of what is a developing neighborhood with some more new residents. And they are going to approach the park from that edge. And so we need to think about them too. There's going to be access from that neighborhood edge as well. Okay. So now we get to the fun part. This is the part where I'm going to entertain you a little bit with possibilities, fun images. Again, we're not nearly at the point of designing. We're just having a conversation. So I'm going to go through a series of slides, and I'm going to talk about some of these ideas. So next, this is these friendly felines. We know some of you have dogs. Some of you are entertained by this idea.
Not felines.
Oh, I'm sorry, dogs. How could I have said that? That's a very funny slip. I apologize. Next picture. Another fun picture. Go ahead, next. This is what we mean by solitude, finding a tranquil edge to be an observer or to be looking inward. Go ahead. This is a beloved park on the East Coast. I'm not trying to say this is your park, but this is a famous park surrounded on all four corners by density. It's Rittenhouse in Philadelphia. Some of you might know it. Okay. And you can see how much people love it. They come out here to read, to socialize, have little conversations, read the paper. People are cutting through the park at all times of day. It's extremely active and beloved. Here's another picture. This is Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa has gatherings on a lawn in a community where there's apartments and neighborhood folks living on the edges. And you can see this is sort of a casual, small-scale gathering, I would say. Go ahead. Back to size. Let's remember the scale of this. I'm going to give you another way of thinking about scale. If you play tennis, if you've ever played tennis, this would be a court. If I lined them up this way, we could get 6 of them on there, and that's it. So it's a nice size. If we don't try and pack too many conflicting ideas in there, we'll be in trouble if we do that, I think. Go ahead. So here's the program. How many of you know that Emeryville has tried to create a master plan in a sense? They've got an idea of how many parks they have, how many they will be developing in the future, and they've sort of assigned some programming. It was a thoughtful thing that was done in 2011. And in fact, this is what has been put in that document about Christie Park. So take a minute to read it with me and to think about it a little bit. Because for us, this is the beginning point of saying, is this our program? We have to work through that process with you, that these are the types of activities that have been thought of for Christie, okay?
Excuse me, what happened to the dogs?
Well, the dogs are mentioned under possible program.
Oh, that's a
And
problem.
then you have to read the paragraph, and it says off-leash use, regulated hours. That's about it. So I'm not trying to not bring it up, but I'm just saying it wasn't in their published list of things. So here's back to the diagram, and a little bit of a bubble diagram is what we call it, that says, gee, if we've got a coffee shop on this corner, and we hope a safe way of crossing now, and we have a bus stop, is that a place where people might, it could be a hanging out, a little place to move out and hang out, shady on a hot day, sun in the morning. Or what about the middle space? That's the space that's most likely to be able to accommodate a more flexible, larger gathering. And again, we're still saying small scale, but there's the opportunity idea. Or an event opportunity, because after all, here's the activity level on Shell Mound, and it might be that and again, going back to the document that was Emeryville's, it said small scale, such as farmers market, arts and cultural, smaller scale festivals sort of thing. So think about the pictures I've just shown you. Maybe that's located in that direction. We're speculating in that direction. We still don't know what that is, so it's a little bit hard to say what happens on the south, hence the dashed arrow. And we do know that up here on the northeast corner, we've got new folks. That community that's adding to your community and neighborhood is going to be approaching the park from that direction.
Can you inform us, the property is to the right that is a ghastly thing.
Yeah,
Whose property is
that's
that?
a city-owned parcel.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
And
So, why are you expanding into that space? That's where I thought you were going to expand. That is the ugliest
I know.
The
space
city, it was
around.
part of a redevelopment agency parcel that was going to be used for housing, and then the redevelopment agency was done away with by the state. The city and the state had to figure out who owned the parcel and such, and the city is still determining what they want to do with that parcel, and there's 2 other parcels, and so they're still determining what use they want for those parcels.
Be housing. They use housing money to buy it, so.
Yeah, most likely it'll be housing, that's what they're.
Is that the part that's fenced in?
Well, the fence is it's fenced in,
Behind fence.
plus there's the 2 industrial buildings that the
It's just
city's now
industrial
using.
Oh, I know,
It's
I
What
recognize it.
What? Say that again?
There's
And then the building
building
next to it has
buildings
been
too
empty
also.
for a long time.
Now the city's using them as a corporate.
Yeah,
They're both owned by the city, I
Right,
know.
right, yeah.
So,
Well, we're waiting on the city just as you are.
expand the park that way instead of into the parking lot.
Is this the open question time? I'm a little confused. I thought you were making a presentation.
You tell us how you like it.
I'm okay with staying where we are, but you know, we're gonna be through in about 3 minutes, and then I think it might be in the interest of everybody just getting the big picture in one go. Can we do that? Okay, let's forge ahead. So now we're on activities. I'm just reminding you, people are exercising as part of their daily lives. They're walking dogs. Let's keep going. They're having these kinds of nice opportunities for conversations. We may have young families. I know we've got a mixed age in the neighborhood kind of thing. That's likely to continue, but who knows? One thing that's nice about parks is it brings together people of different demographics. So here's entrances. Again, the neighborhood context is going to be important to us. We're thinking about entering the park from where and moving through and keeping it active. So here's a diagram that's just simply saying our edges should not wall off. This park should be engaging. It should have an active edge and it should have an active middle. We're thinking about that, and we're thinking about the important points of connection that people are currently using and that we'll be using in the future. This is just moving to a side where a lower burn form is being used near the ballpark. This is a relatively new park, and it's still grassy. It has a little bit of trees for definition. I would say it feels very safe. You can be on the sidewalk and see into the park and vice versa. An interesting thought. This is about grassy edges and the fact that after all, we are windy, we're the bay shore, we have our challenges with the soils. These sorts of things are growing on challenging soils and doing quite well. So a grassy application is a practical direction, I would say. Let's go to the next slide. Trees. So here, we already mentioned, we of course, I'm a landscape architect, I'm a lover of great trees. I know this is challenging. We think we should be judicious. We should be thoughtful about tree selection. We're going to need to give them loving care and the right growing conditions. And it's important to not put out a smorgasbord of trees that will not perform well. And, you know, nobody wants that. Okay. There's an example of a happy tree. This is, I would say, too many trees for your park and your edges. And I think opening it up and enjoying it from every edge might be a better approach. This is again about the fact that as you enter into the park, what should happen next? Do you scatter, or are you strongly directed, or both? You know, are we providing for both? So again, this was back to the point that entrances are important. This is a fun one. I'm going back to one of my favorite parks. This is again Rittenhouse, and forgive me, but I had some kids who graduated from college there, and I've been there a lot, and I do think it's one of the most interesting studies I've had the opportunity to do. This is a neighborhood where there's some graduate families, and they've got little kids, and they come into the park, and I don't know if it's because this is a small, tiny sculpture and a little sitting area, but they all show up with their little buggies, and some of them are just babies, and some of them are toddlers, and this group has found itself on an edge of a park, and it's a tiny little area. If I said it was 30 feet square, I'd be surprised. So here's a reminder, you know, if we're going to have park use with dog friendlies, we need to take care of it. So the idea that the bag dispensers are part of entering the park, probably a key point. This is, again, just trying to sort of graphically conceptualize that if and this is a question, but if the existing, let's say, connection that is in the midpoint of, you know, it's really where you're crossing currently. If it's important to preserve that idea, in fact, we might have a bridging point where we have lawns on both sides of it, and in fact, the new area is the bigger part. It's a possibility. This is just showing you that a bit of topography and a little bit of nature goes a long way and can allow people to catch. I don't know if you've observed parks, but people want to sit somewhere that they can claim their own space, and they just do it naturally. Back against a tree, a certain bench, and something about the subtlety of some earth forms also attracts a certain amount of adventure, a little bit of nature and discovery. Next slide. So multi-use and flexibility is what I'm winding up to. This again is the center of a park where they're doing just an ad hoc yoga group. Next slide. This is something I caught the other day, again in San Francisco, and the exercise use of public parks is an interesting thing that's catching on. These are these little boot camps, and they'll go out in the sunshine to jump rope and pump each other up a little bit. This was a kid kicking a soccer ball with his mom. And this, of course, is the odd, you know, not the typical thing, but it's the 4th of July or the equivalent. It's a big deal where the community turns out, has fun. This is about edges. It's not just about the center. I think that your edges can be strong. And this is showing flexible use of sidewalk system for that arts, cultural, or festival, or whatever it is, where some farmer's market thing or art thing can camp out along a sidewalk if it has sufficient depth. Here's fresh produce being brought in. And so then that brings us back to maybe a last question, and that is there something that you want that is an iconic, there's something in common that all great parks have in common, I think regardless of scale, and that is you remember something about the experience of being there. And often it's tied to something physical about the design that allowed you to have an experience. And by my next slides, I'll show you what I mean. And so that blob representation is the experience you want for this park, that existing berm, and that I just heard this evening that its intent was for performance, although I'd like to get confirmation that it's successful at doing that and it's what you desire. Or could something else happen there? And I'll show you a series of slides so you just understand. So this is, anybody been to Central Park? This is a beloved section of Central Park, and it's just a magnet for young kids to explore. It's just some glaciated rock forms. It's just a natural feature, and everybody loves it. This is one you must know. This is in Berkeley. This is the whale that's up in front of the Hall of Science. And again, you can see what's happening there. Here's another idea. It didn't have to be anything. It was really just the exploration of a few landforms and some grass, and they're having a ball. And that sort of sums it up. You know, it's like, we're not sure what you want, but it's possible that a little bit of something designed into this very flexible, multi-use space with the right kinds of edges, the right kinds of details is what you want. And so with that, we're going to throw it open to questions, and we hope to have a dialogue. And I think this is not such a large group that we can't just sort of informally engage. And I'll take questions. Is that what we want to do? First of all, I want a show of hands. Is everybody comfortable that we can take a few questions as a group, and then we can break up if we want to do that?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay, so.
So I was just wondering, are you here in official capacity or just?
Did you have any questions?
Well, I thought maybe you could kind of clarify for people the three parcels, the one we call the hole in the ground, and the other two, tell people where the city is on that and the intent and the restrictions on the funds and use of that way we get a better idea of why the park's the way it is.
The parcel that is adjacent to the existing park, where you have those pile drives, right? That parcel is slotted for affordable housing. In terms of timing, we do not know when that will be developed.
But we own, the city owns
We
that parcel.
do own the parcel.
But it is restricted to, because the
It
funding
is
came.
restricted to residential and affordable residential housing. And as far as the parcel adjacent to that, the industrial buildings, that too is an affordable housing site. Again, the timing of when that could be developed is unknown at this time.
So does the city own those industrial sites, Claire, or are they still part of the state?
It is still part of that state.
But the hole in the ground next to the park, we do own.
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking for hands over here. You have a question?
Yeah, is it possible that you could go back and show, I can tell you better what I would like, because I've lived here since 1992, so I'm very familiar with the traffic and what's going on. Could you show that the way the park is right now with the path and the two sides? You had a lovely picture of that. And then it would be much easier the way it is now.
Sorry, I was amazed.
Was it that one?
Well, okay, there was
another one? The aerial?
Like an aerial, yeah, okay, yeah, okay, as somebody that has lived here and I have, I think you can hear me, can't you? I'm used to public speaking, so, I used to have a dog, and after he passed, I will get another dog. Couple things, first of all, those of us that live, not all of us, but most of us that live at Pacific Park Plaza, we love being able to walk right here. And we like the fact that unlike your, the park that you said was Doyle Hollis, what we like about this is that it's not symmetric, it's not perfectly a rectangle. It really has charm and grace. It's lovely. That's one of the reasons why I moved here. And I go constantly 3-4 times a day back and forth on this path to get to Pete's, to get to the train station. I walk up and down the stairs. I don't use the elevator. So instead of making this a boring rectangle that's flat, there are many of us that really do like how it's graceful. It's an oasis in the middle of a very busy now area that didn't used to be like this. I don't know why we have to have things and stuff in here. We like it. Now, I'm not going to address myself to the parking lot. To me, you can do whatever you want with that parking lot. But this is so pleasant. It can be quiet. I can walk my dog. I can go by myself. There's a bench on one of these places here. I sit there. I like the sun, yet there are trees and there are bushes around, and that place that you showed next to the building that there's nothing there, it's that big hole. You said, well, there's a lot of cement, but there's that lovely berm, and it's beautiful. It's that big sheet of grass or flowers or greenery. It's very, very nice. So the berm is nice. I appreciate that. The path is lovely, it's direct, yet it's not perfectly straight, and it's not so wide, it's a lot of cement. It's just a nice walkway from one place to the other. And the fact that we have a mixture of greenery and grass, I've seen people, they take a blanket and they'll sit on one side, and the fact that it's divided, whereas you I think you feel that that's unpleasant. It's very nice. If people are chatting a lot, they'll sit over there. People that want to be alone or more solitary can sit on the other side. So speaking from my point of view, what you have now is what you might be showing people in another city and say, now see, you could do something like this. And they say, ooh, that's a good idea. Well, we already have that, and we like it. Many, many, many of us like what we have. Now, I'm not addressing myself to the extension. I just am begging you to let us have this solitary, nice, quiet, tranquil oasis for us and anybody else that wants to participate. I don't want to see equipment there. I don't want to see all kinds of picnic tables. That's not what this is for. You want to stick all that stuff in the parking lot, be my guest. But my feeling is, and I've talked to people, whether they come or not, a lot of people don't like to come to these meetings, they don't like to speak up, or they feel nobody listens to them. But I think what we have was planned beautifully and executed beautifully, and it is a charming place, and I'd like to see it stay as much as we can, this part of it like that, and do what you want with the parking lot, and do all the grandiose things you'd like to do with that. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Go ahead. Do you want the mic? Would that make it easier?
So one of the things that I've observed is that, or the way that I use the park also is to get from here to there. And this isn't really a major thoroughfare for PPP to get to the other side of the tracks. And one of the big design considerations that I'd like to see is that we enhance that connection. Right now it works kind of, but it's a narrow path. It does the job, but if we could align that crosswalk with however we connect and continue on.
Can we use the pointer?
Yeah.
I want to make sure I understand
Okay.
your point fully, because, you know,
This
this is a small group. We could hear from all of you, and I hope we do.
Yeah, so if you look at the white line crossing Christie, the crosswalk there, yeah.
Okay.
If you could really put a focus on creating that connection to, I want to get to the Amtrak bridge, and I want to do it in a really nice way. That would be probably my primary design consideration. Secondary is how the park gets used as a community is for dogs, people with dogs. And that is what creates community there. That's where people hang out together. So that's kind of naturally happening right now. If we could work on enhancing that, creating some dog space. One of the things that does work with the berm is that it creates a barrier from the street. So not necessarily in love with the berm. In fact, I think it's a little too high. It disconnects the Christie from the viewing. I don't really like that. It does provide a wind shelter, so there are pluses and minuses.
Sure.
Can we interview you just a second? So
Sure.
on the connection, do you find it's more acceptable during the day and less at night, or is there a time of day that you?
I use it all times of day. It would be nice to have some lighting in there. I mean, that's one of the things that we can do to enhance the experience is to put some nice lighting that really makes it feel special.
Is it actually dark, and some
It's
people
dark,
avoid
yeah.
using it because of that?
It's dark at night, the path is dark at night.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a problem. In other words, if it had light, it would be used more.
I think it would be, I mean, it's a natural thing. It's like, it's the only way to get from here to there. So
Yeah.
people are going to use it anyway.
Uh-huh.
But if we could really enhance that, that would be great. The other comments is, I don't know what's going to happen with the other parcel, but when you look at the back side of the brick building, on the south end of the park, the southeast, yeah,
Sure.
that's pretty ugly. So if there's anything that you can do to put trees in that corner or something in that corner, so it really kind of blocks that visual part, that'd be great. The other thing is whatever we do with a connector street, an extension of the alley, I know the alley is,
Can I find out where that
What's
is?
the,
yeah, behind, yeah, thank you.
The drive
Oh,
behind.
oh, sure.
So that's a definite required, needed service alley. It has a great function to it. But what I'd like to see is when pedestrians are crossing that, don't make it a street, make it a curbless, like paver kind of thing. It's really more of an extension of the park than more of a street. And really bring the whole park down to whatever plaza is going to be developed on the north side of the public market. So overall, the experience that you want to do is a contiguous park-like space, even though it's not officially park space, but the pedestrian space that connects to Shell Mound. Pull that all, unify that whole
Yeah,
thing.
got it.
So you just to clarify, you don't want to feel like you're leaving the park, crossing a street, and getting onto a sidewalk. you'd really like to feel that the park extend all the way out.
Absolutely,
Yeah, so
yeah,
connectivity, I mean, actual and even visual and physical,
yeah. And then
pull it together.
Yeah, and then the last thing is I'd like you to, whether it be in the overall site or at the park, is work with AC Transit for potential bus stops in the Emeryville. Right now, the routes that they have don't really work very well when they go down to 65th. And there can be an 8-minute train that holds traffic up there. So if the transit vehicles could cut through here, and if we could incorporate the transit stop, that's where people are just going to disembark, and then they're going to go to the public market. They're going to energize that space, basically.
Right, which you see as a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. These are good comments, and
I have lived here for 30 years at Pacific Park Plaza, and originally we were the only lonely people that lived there, and everything around us was industrial. So, and I also look down at that park from the unit that I live in. And I do know now we have children in our neighborhood, and they are coming, and they have no place to go play. And as much as us adults want to ignore them, we can't. I think somewhere in this park, and maybe it should be on the other side where the parking lot is now, you should have a little child tot lot for the children. And we have just as many dogs, or even more dogs than children. And I don't know that the dogs should necessarily be able to run around free everywhere. Maybe there could be a dog park built into that. I don't really much care one way or another, but I'm telling you that that's the need around there. Because the Doyle Street Park, as much as maybe we don't like it, it's being used. And it's got that one part with the entertainment and where they have the functions, which is what you could keep with the old part. And then the other park is where they have the top lot and, you know, and things like that. So, because we're gonna get a whole bunch more residential units and we will have more children, and somehow or other we should build that in. But there are a lot of us old people and we would like a little tranquility there. I wish you would really get some trees that really grow, because they don't. And same thing with us across the street, it's disgusting. So having a tranquil area, and I have no problem with the berm being there and making that side for the adults and the other side for the children and the dogs.
And just out of curiosity, is this a small dog community, a big dog community? Or
In my building,
all
it's
kinds
small
of
dogs, because we don't allow any dogs over 25 pounds, but the other buildings have big
There are a
dogs.
lot of big dogs. It's
so
really
they're
nice.
both.
It's a real mix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, may I say something? Oh, thank you. Yeah, I live in Pacific Park Plaza, and, you know, some suggestions are quite good, but I don't, you know, the space I can see is not that big. I mean, even though, the space is not that big, even though it seemed like, you know, we can do a lot of different things. So we really have to really define what it is that we really want. Because this idea of having children, having dogs, having everything, we just can't do it. I don't think we can do it. Then we won't have any peace. So we need some peace too. So, so I don't know exactly right now, you know, what are some of the best things, but I think we really, really need to define. And because it is nice to have a little area for special events, because we did have special events here several times during the summer. It was quite nice, because people would bring their food and their chairs, and they have a sort of a special entertainment. It was really nice, the music. But the only thing is the weather. It's quite windy. So that is really a problem too at times. But I like the idea of your different entrances, you know, consideration for different parts of the area around the park. And I think that's kind of nice to have different, that's a very nice consideration. What I don't quite understand is, I guess the south part, where they're going to have more, you know, people, more housing and all that, and how we can address that part of the park. Are they going to have parking spaces in those new buildings going up?
Presumably, they're multi-story buildings with parking garages.
So, I'm just curious, on the east side of, that straight line where the parked cars are?
Yes.
Is there not gonna be still parking, or what is gonna be?
It
You know?
will, well, our initial
Same
thought
park?
is it'll continue to here, and then it'll be more like, feel more like a regular street with on-street parking, and less like a parking lot.
Oh, I see, so it'll be like a street, so cars are going by.
Well,
It's
not,
an- it's
not
served as
local
an
traffic.
alley.
Oh, sorry, okay. Okay, I'm just trying to think about it, the space, and just like, how do you fit all this, with the cars and the people, and oh gosh, and the dogs and the children, and, I don't know, I would really have to think about this. So
Well,
I'll let somebody else do it.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point, which is sort of the process, and we didn't mention that. So this is the first step on a pretty lengthy process. So our current plan is to hear what you have to say, digest it, think about it, put a lot of those ideas into some format, and then have a study session with the Planning Commission within the next few months. And then after that study session, come back to you as a group and report on what we've heard from both you and from the Planning Commission, and show you some initial ideas and get your feedback. And if there's some consensus, then we'll go to the Planning Commission for a final hearing, but that'll be later, much later in the year. So I think we've got time to kind of think together
We've
about.
got time to reflect. We don't have to narrow it down right this minute, but we've got to have a process where we're hearing from you. So we've done two things. For some of you who don't feel like grabbing the mic and summarizing your thoughts now, and you want to just go away and think, we'd still like to hear from you. We've got a blog, we've got a website. It's on a card. The cards were they passed out, guys, or are they sitting there? So be sure and take one. Either fill it out now or mail it in.
Or to the website. I bet you can leave it at public market.
Yeah, you can drop it by the Public Market Management Office. There's also the email address, which is also can be found on the Public Market website. And our management staff would be happy to take any information you want to leave to them.
Are you in charge of the public market?
Yes, we're the.
Or the other, you're the
Yes,
group
we're the-
that is overseeing that? What's going on in there?
Well, let's finish with the part first, and we can talk about that.
Please go ahead. You have the mic.
It's amazing to think of all this planning going on and the elephant in the room over there, the blight,
That's whole, is
yeah,
what it's called,
yeah.
remember?
What is it?
Redevelopment.
Yeah, the hole in the ground. I mean, it is hard, like, I love having the burn there because then I don't have to look at that if I'm in the park. I mean, that's really, I don't care about it one way or the other, the berm, but I don't like looking at that because I look at it from my window, Pacific Park Plaza. I overlook the park and the hole. And I'm glad that it was brought up about the lights, because, as you actualize this plan with all the shops and everything else, we're gonna be using a path at night to go over there, to go to restaurants, and that's the way we'll get there. So I think it is important to have lights. And as far as dogs and children go, I mean, there are going to be more dogs and there are going to be more children because we're gonna have more housing. So, and that's the only place you can take your dog, that's green. So it's gotta be in the plan. And I think there should be a plan for the smaller children as well. So, yeah, where's it all gonna go? Who knows? But if what we're talking about is our needs. There's dogs, there's children.
And then they're all people.
Yeah.
And yes, and luckily, we have a crosswalk that has a 20-second delay. And, yeah, I mean, this is very exciting, and it's wonderful to hear about the extension. So.
I know there's a lot of people, residents. I'm curious, are there activities that you might do in the lawn on your side of the street?
No.
No, it's just to look at?
Nothing else.
Nothing happens.
It's got really bad drainage, so it doesn't drain. So it's really like a swamp. It looks like a lawn, but it's.
There's a concrete cap.
You walk across, you get sight.
So it's really a difficult place.
Challenge.
And we don't want to dig it up because this was prior to the environmental rules that this was built, so there was, we remember there was some kind of factory there that made that pigmentation, so we do not want to touch that.
Okay,
And
thanks.
that should be your answer.
Perfect.
Sure.
Thank you.
Please pass the mic, anyone who's willing to. Share some thoughts.
The park we have now was originally intended to be a stage and performance area as well as a leisure park. And it never quite worked because there's nowhere for people to watch anything that's going on up there. It's really a very nice little stage with a couple of walkout areas. Such things as passing Shakespeare groups could really do well there. So I think it'd be good to put some benches in so people could actually use that as a sort of mini amphitheater sort of place. That's one idea.
I'm one of those people that really count on that
Crossing to get to.
the public market and peaks and such. I remember at the last meeting, there was someone that talked about trees that were particularly good for protecting from wind. And I know we don't want it all closed in, but hopefully some strategically placed trees that do help with the wind, because, you know, when the wind is gusty, which is often, it's just not so much fun to sit.
Great, thank you. We can move it around. Sorry. Anybody else want to say something? Here we go.
I want to talk about a couple of the other slides that are there. So if we go back to one of the parks where you guys had an idea of the path going through and the division of uses of it, future.
Was it a block diagram?
Yeah, just keep going. Something that has the path in it. Yeah, that will work there. I think there is a way that we could put a lot in this park. And I'm thinking the southern side there could be the more respite, quiet part, or where we can have more of the festival type things, the flower shows, the mini concerts or whatever. I think the south side is where we could have a dog area and play space. I think the idea of a tot lot and play space.
North side?
North side, yeah, I'm sorry.
Can we
Yeah,
use the
north side.
pointer? I want to make
Yeah.
sure we're all
Yeah,
talking the
use
same
pointer,
way.
yeah. That area there, I don't think we need a tot lot. We travel a lot to Portland, and one of the best parks there is Jameson Park, which is a small square park that has a wall fountain that pours water out, and the children can go play in this like 4 inches of water and stuff. And I think where you showed the kids climbing the rocks, if we do something that's a bit more natural. I think water is an issue for us where we live because of the drought. But I think if we had something that kids can play on that was natural, and like you showed in Philadelphia with the small sculpture in that sitting area, I think if it's just something that children can engage with, that will be it. I don't think we have, every park we have almost has a tot lot, and some are used and some are not. So I think that is met, that need is met in town, and as a small town, we can't put everything in every park. So I think that would give us a natural thing to do. It would give kids a play space. Then on the other end, we could do some kind of enclosed dog area. So that, because I know there are some children that are afraid of dogs. I think the dogs do need to be contained just for safety's sake and for everyone's comfort. So I think that iteration is really good. The problem with the berm, I'm a night owl, and I go to bed usually at midnight at night, and one of my rituals every night is to look out. We're on the 30th floor, we overlook this park, and my ritual every night is to look out on the street and see what's happening. I'm often calling the police on people that are hanging out, and the thing with the berm is that it does prevent the police from seeing into the park from Christie. So if we could go back to some of your earlier examples, there was one where you said the respite area where people are sitting. I think this idea is going to be ways back. I think this idea kind of accomplishes the look of the berm, but yet allowing police to look into the park.
What's going on in the park?
Yeah, they go back, that one there. There are people hanging out, there are fights. There are a lot of people in their cars, and it mainly came from when the pool hall was there. So I'm thinking that being gone is going to eliminate some of that, but I don't know what else is coming. So something like.
Tiny question, I want to know if the problem area is on the street side of the, where it is.
It's
on
the parking lot and onto the edge in the parking lot, or into the park, not on the Christie side, but more
Not on the
behind,
Christie side of the
behind the
business.
berm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Behind the berm,
And
got
more
it.
in towards the parking lot. And so I think this could be a happy medium of giving us the berm and even maybe raise that up a little bit. And I think that seating is just amazing. I think that could be really, and the step going into that, I think that could be a beautiful park for us right
Well,
there.
accessible, nice.
But if it was accessible from the other side,
I
you
can
know,
work that
I mean,
out.
ADA is something that we're going to have to comply with. So
Oh,
ADA is going to
absolutely.
make sure that we don't do anything that everyone can enjoy the park. But lighting is critical. We have the ball lamps around there. I saw one trying to come on last night. It ended up dying. None of those were on. The park at times could be absolutely lightless. So I think, and with the LEDs that we have now, and the type of ground level lighting we can do some amazing lighting. It could be cost effective and yet effective at keeping because it's the reason it's populated by so many people is it's dark. I mean, even at night when I'm calling the police, how many people are there? I can't see it. I don't know. There's a group of people. So I think that the lighting really is key, and the path going through the park from the one corner, as everyone has said, to the public market is key. But I think you guys have identified that, and I think you're doing the right things by having all the accesses, considering the new building that's being built and the future buildings. I think you had another picture, kind of a bulb out from the park into the parking lot that I think creates a little bit more space. Yeah, see the bulb out?
Yeah.
Right?
You?
Yeah, right there?
Yeah.
Right, see, that could be part of a plaza area that's brought into the park as well, where you can do more events and stuff. So I think overall you guys have a good idea. I'm with everyone. I've lived here going on 12 years now. That hole in the ground has been a hole in the ground. That's not your problem. That's the city's problem, and I hope we're going to address that. But I think those of us sitting here asking you to do something, that problem is a waste of everyone's time. You can't control that. So hopefully that'll be done, and it will be a nice place that will interact with the park eventually. Maybe mixed use and have a cafe on the corner. Who knows what's going to happen there? But I think you guys are going the right direction. I think we need lighting. I think we need visibility in the park. Wind is a problem, and I think, like was said, the trees, we use trees versus going to burn to kind of buffer the wind. But wind is always going to be a problem because of where we live. So if we can work with that and kind of keep in mind. I think you guys really have started something here, and I like the dialogue, and I think everyone has said, you know, what we want. We need access through the park to the rest of the complex, and just more or less listen to that.
Okay, well, we're taking copious notes, as you can tell. I really do care. And if you have follow-up thoughts, I want to hear, and I want you to turn around to your neighbors and other people, if you will. Yes, I'll pass it.
I would. Yes, I just want to thank Steve. I think his suggestions are very, very nice. And the idea of, you know, with the north side means for the children and maybe for the dogs, and the other part of it for special events. But what I want to know now, right now, I'm looking at this map, is that white area that is east. What is that going to be an apartment building? Yeah,
It's going to be a combination of retail and multifamily.
Oh, I see. Okay. And how about to the right side?
That's where the gym is, where the pool was.
Oh, I see. Okay. Because I think someone mentioned about a cafe. Where would that cafe be?
We already have a cafe right by that coffee shop, and then there was a speculation of it.
Oh, I think you might be referring to, in the earlier iteration from 2008, there was anticipated to be a pretty large restaurant in the park. And
oh, I see.
At the moment, we're not considering that.
Our thought is the park isn't really large enough to have that.
Oh, because I guess I misunderstood, because I thought there was going to be a cafe outside the gym area, that area.
Yeah, in an earlier drawing.
Oh, okay.
There was a cafe contemplated here in that white space.
Yeah.
But then in a much earlier plan, the city had contemplated a new restaurant here in the park.
Oh, okay.
Which
Because
would
I
have made the
thought,
park
cafe and park, I was thinking about.
Wasn't there one planned for the corner of the grocery store?
store that's?
Yeah, there was.
Right, yeah, it was about in this location.
And that may still happen. We're still working on the designs for that block.
We hear it Sprouts, that's.
It's not gonna be Sprouts. We've got a couple of other grocery stores we're working with.
So that area is gonna be a grocery store?
We don't know for sure. We're working with some grocery stores.
Oh,
now.
okay.
But there's already coffee shops inside the public market.
Yes.
If you have any more coffee shops, it's take
It wouldn't,
business
it
away
wouldn't be a
from
coffee, it wouldn't be a coffee shop.
Huh?
It would not be a coffee
Oh,
shop.
what?
Okay, so we rescued you? Somebody else, anyone else want to have you pass them the mic?
Oh, right here.
I would like
Right.
to.
Oh, yeah.
I was on the planning commission when the specific plan was approved for this. And there, as a matter of fact, I was on there for 20 years, and I could not get that whole developed. And I'm looking at it, and we've had 3 different projects on there, and none of them ever happened. And I am more disgusted about that than anybody else in this world. But it's out of your hands. I think you guys are doing a fabulous job. I appreciate the fact that you're consulting us the way that you are. And I like the things that you're doing and how considerate you are. And just your whole process is just really well. And I'm just surprised. Do you have to do the park this early? I thought that was much later.
Well, we wanted to.
Are you just doing it because you want to? I mean, is the city compelling you to do
The
it?
city is not compelling us to do this. We wanted, the city is not compelling us to do it, but we want to make sure we have enough time to get the feedback from the community to get the park done properly. And that's where we want to start now rather than waiting to the end.
Now, are we ready to?
Well, I think, like, there are any more questions about the park?
Public
No, I
market.
was gonna ask when you're gonna get to the public market.
Yeah.
Okay, show of hands, any last call for the park for now? Okay, don't forget, we do have a website. Write it down, send a
And it's on the
message.
cards in the back. too.
Yeah, there are cards in the back, it's an easy way to share with some friends. Grab a
See you
few.
back with Terry.
Okay.
All right, now we
Thank
can
you
talk
for
about
coming.
public market.
Right.
So what is happening is we will be starting the first phase of the remodel of the food hall later in June. And that's going to be a 3-phase process because we want to keep the food hall open during the process. And that process will take, about 6 months.
6 to 9 months.
Yeah, 6 to 9 months. So we'll be upgrading all the finishes inside the food hall in terms of the fronts, the finishes, the flooring, the lighting, just updating it. It's a little bit tired, so we want to bring it into the modern.
How about the ventilation?
We're going to change, the ventilation's all going to be new. So if there's no ventilation right now, you're right. So yeah, new ventilation is going in, and then we'll be, once that process starts, we'll then be able to fill in the vacancies, and take care of that too. Yes?
Yeah, at the last meeting, you asked, at that time, I thought it was you, but maybe it was some other developer, what those of us that frequent the public market would like. And I said, well, I would really like to see some type of a Hofbrau come there with real turkey, you could get sandwiches. You used to have one, and I don't know what happened, but there was real turkey, real roast beef, it was wonderful.
We're talking to several purveyors that do a little bit of both. They'll sell almost like a specialty butcher that will also sell Hofbrau type products. And so we're looking for quality purveyors, and we are talking to people
When
that
you
do
say
that
type,
too.
but not turkey rolls, but the real thing.
No, we're talking real thing. We're talking about quality. The people we're talking to wouldn't want processed. They would find probably free-range organic turkeys to roast. That's what we're going.
And do you have any plans for any type of bread stores?
Yes, we are talking to some bakers.
That's very important. A lot of us.
Yeah, we're talking to a few fresh bakers. The lady in the back.
again. I promised that the last time, but it didn't happen. And then the other thing, please update your sign on the road about guide dogs only. That's really old.
About guide dogs only.
And I guess myself in doing great. I like the park. And I know it'll be accessible. And I like the park that we have. And it does have a grant down into the grass, which I do. And I will be in touch with you via email.
Thank you. We we can reach us up there, the email website. What's that?
Really
Oh, we'll get some more.
accessible, about accessible.
So I think, the question was about accessible doors
Well,
to the food hall, and we'll have accessible doors into the food hall. With regard to the dogs, I'm not sure if that's a health department issue or not. But if it's not a health department issue, then we'll certainly address that.
No, I'm not. Right now, the sign is guide dog only.
Oh.
Guide dog and
Right.
service dog.
Yeah, okay.
Service
So it should be changed to guide dogs and therapy dogs.
It's not service dogs.
Service dogs, okay.
They're not just there, I mean,
Okay.
service dogs.
Service dogs.
Working dogs.
Service dogs, okay. Right,
Yeah. And she said that she would be in touch with you by email.
right, okay. Anyone else? Well, thank you all for coming. We appreciate you taking the time in your evening to share with us
Thank
your
you.
thoughts. And excuse me, you had one?
It seemed to me in the last meeting that you would be just about ready to start with the moving of Shell Mound once the theater closed. Should we expect that?
No, that's not going to happen right in this phase. It's probably going to be moved to a later phase.
Oh, okay.
Do you ever think you would ever try to get another theater to come back here?
Yes.
Because it was used at least, I know I was there many times a week.
The problem is that the theater needed many more of you. Their revenue they were barely covering just their employees' costs, let alone any of the other operating costs.
Well, how
That was
about
the
a
problem.
small theater?
But you're using that space for something else, right?
Right, we're going to use it for something else, but
No, I mean, yeah, isn't that gonna be housing? Where
it's
that
going to be housing.
Yeah.
So then the remodeling of the public market and the park are the next pieces?
The next pieces are the remodeling. The first phase would be the remodeling of the food hall and the exterior of the existing food hall. We're going to open up some of where it's closing the food hall and have it open up, spill out on the sidewalk, some new cafes and such. We're going to look at redoing the area between the brick building and the office tower, that little alley in the back. Look at redoing the facades along the base of the office tower and making that more of a retail presence and bringing retailers there. The next phase will be the park, and then we'll also be doing the apartment and retail, which will be in the parking lot that's right opposite the bridge where you get to Amtrak. And then we'll be doing the road realignment and that space at the top there, which either be retail, multifamily, the market location.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.